Thank you all for taking the time to meet with me today, and hopefully I make good use of your time. We've got a lot of great feedback on these sessions, and really the intent of these sessions is to try to introduce you to some of the capabilities of ActiveDEMAND that you may or may not be using. Hopefully, give you some of the not just how, but some of the why. And usually what I'll do is I'll share a couple of slides to sort of position the stuff, but I'm going to be spending most of today's presentation going into the tool set itself. So today's topic is really I'm looking at walking through our unified builder. And everybody on the phone today, I'm sure you've seen this slide. Really, it's the reason most folks come to ActiveDEMAND is they are trying to solve this problem where they're juggling all of these different tools to do their marketing activities. And the promise of ActiveDEMAND is that it is a full stack integrated marketing platform. And most folks, when they first are introduced to ActiveDEMAND, they're like, wow, you guys do a lot of stuff. How is it possible that you can do so many things and do a great job of so many things? And I argue that the reason we're able to pull it off is that a lot of the apps in the previous slide they all have builders. So what we've done is we spent a lot of money on our unified asset builder. And the majority of, like, if you just think about using ActiveDEMAND, it's really just a couple of things. Really, ActiveDEMAND is a builder, it's a workflow engine, and it's a couple of campaign container types. So there's really not a lot to learn in the platform. But if we think of this entire stack, the reality is there's 5 of the items in the app stack, and also I've added another one here, all use the same builder. So whether we're using building or using our dynamic content system, our report scheduling system, our landing pages, our emails, our pop-ups, or our web forms, the reality is they're all using a version of our unified asset builder. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through using the builder in different contexts, because the reality is, even though it's one builder, to pull this off with using the same builder for all of these different applications, the reality is the context of the builder will add and remove some capabilities based on what you're doing inside the platform. So that's it for slides. Really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through, hopefully give you some ideas in walking through the different builders. And also one of the things that I know some of the people on the call today are marketing agencies, and there's a different instance of the system for agencies than there is for other folks. And I'll try not to focus too much on the agency features versus the end users, but I will be talking, some of the things we'll be talking about the agency features. So I'm going to start off with simple, and then I'll work through to complex, and then I'll basically drop the gloves and show you the pop-up builder, which is, I think, the craziest of all the builders that we have. So the first builder I'm going to show you from a simplicity perspective is our email builder. And a lot of the metaphors that we've done in our builders are shared across all the different builder types. And with the email builder, something that's of course unique is the concept of the email header, which is relevant for anything we're sending emails. But as far as structure and using the system, it's the same metaphor over and over and over again. There's some type of an asset properties bar here. There's a bar here. There's an asset properties, and there's styling. And the styling elements are common across all of the different builders. And then there's this concept of rows, which is adding structure to the asset, and then content. And we do as well have a user library, which I'll talk about today. So when building the emails, really there's a little bit, the constraint for building emails is really the email clients, right? Because email clients are not like a full web asset, or I should say a web browser, although some of them are starting to move closer in that, and those have been doing email marketing for a long time. It's clearly we've made some progress in the capabilities of the email clients. But that is our constraint, is we're rendering these emails in an email client. So we cannot do as many of the crazy things that we typically would do for example, on a full-featured landing page where the asset is going to be rendered in a web browser. So as far as structure, and this is the same for all of our assets, there's this concept of a row, and the rows are really just have columns. So there's rows, columns, and content blocks. So this row has one column, this row has two columns, etc. And it's the case that once we've added a row, then what we're going to do is on this row, we're going to be adding content blocks. And the row is designated when we hover over it, you'll see this little hamburger icon for accessing some of the capability, I should say the styles of the row as well as the styles of the columns. So if I go here and I add a 2-column row, I will hover over here and you can see the little dotted lines across the columns that I'm going to be managing the styles for. And in the columns, as you're seeing here, I'm just dropping content onto the columns. And I'm just going to change the styles just so you can sort of see how the styles play out here. So the top level style is the asset, and the styles are always managed using, you'll see when we hover over things, it has this little icon here that indicates that we're going to be changing the styles of the asset. And if I click this little style object here, you'll see there's an advanced and a basic. And those that have been using the platform for a long time, all we've ever had is the advanced bar, but we introduced for some of the new folks this basic bar here, which gives you basically a simplified view of some of the capabilities. But on the advanced, I'm just going to go to the backgrounds here just to demonstrate the priority or precedence of the styles. So if I go here, I'm just going to add a background style, apply, and I'll do text color, apply, and basically you'll see here that this block here has a background color of red, has a text color of white on this whole black background here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the column for that exact row. And here I'm going to go to the backgrounds, and I'm going to, same thing here, I'm going to create some other background style. And this is just to show you how these background priorities go. So as you see here, the red is above the blue, the column is blue on top of a row. And then if I go on the row styles here, it's a case that I'll add some type of a color here as well. Same story, but this one I'm going to make, so this is going to be one really ugly asset here, but you'll see here that the asset row is green. Now, when we look at our assets, in the there is this concept of full width and boxed. So this actually has a little bit different meaning in emails than when we're actually using landing pages, which I'll talk about in just a second. But if I do this here, it's a case that it extends the content across the entire width of the row. That's for the asset. And if I go to the row styles, I have the same type of thing with my background colors, and I'll just close this here. The point of the story is that, and then the last style I wanted to show you here was the entire asset itself. And I'm just going to go here. It's currently at this color. I'm just going to change it to something really bizarre, which is pink. And you'll see it has the coloring across the entire asset. And if I went here and put this as transparent, it would show through the pink. So I'm just going to reset that back. Long story short is it's rows, columns, and content blocks. The styles layer on top of each other so that you get quite a bit of control over what the styles of the assets are doing. I'm just going to remove this. One of the, I think, powerful features of the editor, and this is across all of the different builders, and I'll just remove this, is the row library. So as you see this email here, so the email builder, I mean this template, there's this wide block here, and then there's several shorter blocks here with different columns. So we've sort of got this two styles going on in this specific email. And how this was achieved was we built out this row here, and I'm just going to show you the styles on this row. And basically what we've done in the spacing is we've added a 25 pixel margin to the two sides of this content block. And it's important to understand the difference between margin and padding. Margin is on the outside of the objects, padding is on the inside of the objects. So if I'm putting for example, if I'm doing padding on this content block, it's going to push the content in. If I'm going to do margins on the content block, it'll push basically the entire block inward. But if you see here, this row has no right and left margin, whereas this row and the subsequent rows below it have this 25 pixel margin. And basically what we did is we created this row, and then what we did is we just duplicated it so that we can start building out our template. And quite often when people are first using ActiveDEMAND, they think, should I build a template or should I do it in the campaign? And my recommendation is get your templates built first, use the templates in your campaigns. And whenever I'm building a template, I typically do not put content, right? So when I'm I'll just put placeholders so that it saves me time, not having to delete content, etc. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you here is basically the editors. And if I look at a content, this is across all the different builders, is if I look at this image that I've dragged on here, is if I click the image, something that's very important on images is the sizing of the image. Now, if we look at this email, the email has a width of 750, and typically emails are, in the older days it was about 600, but now we've seen emails as wide as 800 pixels. And it's a case that we have to be cognizant of the sizes of the images we're sending on our emails, as well as our landing pages, pop-ups, etc. So if you've uploaded an image, if you click the image, there's actually quite a few things that show up. One that I just want to highlight here is this image editor. If you click this allows you to crop the image, make adjustments to the image, and more importantly, is actually resize the image. So this image isn't too bad. It's 730. So, looking at the width of the email, I think it's a reasonable size of the image. Another thing that you'll see in the images is if you look here, I can edit the HTML around the image. So we have a nice HTML editor. And it's the case that there is, if you click this little icon here, it brings out the slider to replace the image, gives you a little bit of default stylings on the image. And then the final builder, which is the block builder, and if I just click this, click this pencil, what it does is opens the entire block into this editor here. And this gives you a bigger menu or kitchen sink, if you will, as well as gives you a little bit more control inside the builder, as well as with the emails. We also present this little social shares option. So basically you can choose which of the social share icons are going to be included on the block, and they show up down here. So that's pretty much the email builder is fairly straightforward. It's the simplest of all the builders, and we have these content blocks. You can, whenever I hover over here, it says add to library. It's going to add the library element to the library here, as well as on rows. I can archive, which will put the row into our library here. Now, it's important because of how we're sending emails. The reality is we cannot share rows and objects. Like, for example, if I was saving this little block here, it would go into the library. The structure of these objects is different for emails than it is for any other asset in the platform. So you can save rows for reuse in your emails, but the rows are only going to be visible when you're doing emails. Another thing I wanted to highlight here in the builders for email specifically, and I'm right now in the template library, there are some options in the builder for email templates. And there's a couple of things. One is the language, right? And what this changes is the unsubscribe link verbiage, the view in browser verbiage, that type of stuff to the specific languages. Now, for agencies, you may be creating, and I'm logged into an agency account right now, you may be creating templates that you want to share in your sub-accounts, and we see this as well in senior living if they've got multiple communities and they're doing managing it from a corporate account. It's the same concept for the agency master account as well, as we may want to share our templates across the entire inventory of sub-accounts. And this is a new feature that we've added to the platform is template use. And one of the things that a lot of the agencies were asking for is they wanted control over the emails that are being sent when somebody signs up for an account or there's a user account created. There's a lot of different templates that we have in our system that are system templates. And now we actually allow you to create your own versions of these system templates with your own verbiage, etc. So this is what the usage is, and the usage allows you to save a template with a specific use, and that's the template that's going to be used in that use case. And I recommend going to the support portal to see what dynamic fields are available for each of these special cases, so that you actually not only override the template, but you're also providing some useful content inside those templates. And the last thing I think that I wanted to go over in emails is this part here, which is target. And really what this is when you use a template, the template is visible when you create new emails. And there's several contexts in the platform for building new emails. One context is clearly in a campaign that we're going to send to prospects. Another one context is in a workflow editor for an internal process. So if I'm going to send an email to salespeople or email to marketers, right? Instead of us just dropping down this massive list of different types of emails, some of them contextually are more appropriate for some templates are more appropriate based on context. So if this email, for example, it was a custom email just for lead notifications, we could go in here and designate it as an email that I'm going to be sending to, like for example, if it's to sales notifications. What this would do is if I designated it as sales, this template would only be visible if I was in a sales notification workflow object. So it's really for reducing the clutter when you're seeing these templates being used inside the platform. And but this one here is clearly an email for prospects, so you can just designate it as a prospect, and this will not show up in the workflow actions for sending emails to sales or marketing or replies, or I should say to senders in the case of for example, when somebody books a meeting, or using the email broker, this type of stuff. So that's the first builder, and that's the email builder. I think that's the one most folks are going to be using the most of. And the next builder I wanted to highlight is the report builder, which is just again, it's the same builder again. It is the email builder. But the difference here is now we are sending custom reports. And basically the way when you see this one is if you go to the report scheduler, creating a new email report, it is the same builder again. And it's really the same builder as the email builder, but now we're giving you access to all of the dashboard widgets. And also we have the option here to PDF, and I actually recommend never PDFing a report. Nobody reads PDFs, but some people want it, so you can export the PDF, but it's a case that most times we're not actually sending, I'd rather get a report as the body of an email as opposed to a PDF. So it's the same builder, it's the same concept. As you see, it looks exactly as the email builder. It has an email header that you can control, etc. But the difference is, of course, now the content that you're seeing is different, as well as there is some objects that reference date ranges. So this is now exposed. There's also objects, report objects that reference a specific campaign. So this is exposed, and basically the way you would get to these elements is clicking on the pencil, the properties of the element, and changing some of the aspects of the widget. The other thing that's different about the report builder from the email builder is the email builder versus the report builder is the dynamic field. So all content blocks have dynamic fields that you can reference, and these are, some of you may know them as merge fields, etc., like first name, last name, that type of stuff, which is going to ActiveDEMAND will replace the field with the appropriate content for that prospect, or contact rather. But now there's actually some dynamic fields that are available in the context of a report where we want to do, for example, inline values, right? So you can say the total number of people who visited the website this month are insert number. So we've exposed some specialty numbers here that you can, and again, I say go to the support portal to see exactly how to use this, but there is some dynamic fields that are only available in the report builder that are not available in the email builder or the page builder, etc. Now, those two builders are quite simple, and I think one of the widgets that I use in all of them that is absolutely a lifesaver is the spacer widget. You'll see this widget being used, I use it tons, and you'll see the context of using this in the page builder more than the emails, but it's really for making things pretty. As far as a tip, something that I like to do is, whether I'm using emails or landing pages or any builders, is I try to keep as little as possible in a row. So instead of having one gargantuan row with all of the stuff, I try to have specialty rows, clone the rows so that I have a lot of rows in the asset as opposed to one massive row. And the reason for that, like you'll see here, this is a fairly big row. It's got all of these different widgets. And the reason that I like having a lot of rows as opposed to just one big row is reuse, right? Is that if I like what I've done, I'll save it into the library here, and then basically by archiving it, and then, like, for example, a footer, email footers. I have several of the footers that I use all the time, and I save them into a library, and I drag them into all my different emails. So it's a lot easier to manage styles as well, to do some fancy styling if you keep it tight, where there's just a, for example, you see here, very simple row, couple of content blocks, another simple row, a couple of content blocks, etc. So try to keep it simple is my recommendation. Now the next builder, and this is probably, well, it is the most complex of our builders, is our page builder. And I'm just going to start off by showing a page, and then I'm going to go in and show how we pulled this off. So we have a lot more features in the page builder than we do in the email builder, because it's going to be, the asset's going to be rendered by a browser. So if you look at this landing page, which seems like a very simple landing page, but there's actually quite a bit going on from a design perspective. And I'm going to demonstrate this by using this responsive slider in Chrome. And you can toggle this in Chrome, which is a very useful tool. So you'll see how this page evolves. So first of all, like you see, there's this grid on the picture. A couple of things you'll notice as well is that there's a transparent background here. So you can see this picture taking up the entire block here. So what I'm going to do here is, as you change the size of the page, all of a sudden the the background goes away. And as you keep on going, now the header changes and then the logo centers. So there's a lot of changes going on just to make the page look reasonable in the different sizes. So how we've done this, if we look in the landing page builder, it comes back to, again, still rows, columns, and content blocks. And there's also, with the landing page builder, now we have some other capabilities that are not available in the email builder. So if we look at this page, and a lot of the magic happens in the style. So what we've done is the first style that you'll see is in the background of the row itself. So if we look at the background of the row itself, we have that picture, the full size picture that you see there. And what we've done, if you click this little advanced item, this shows you where the asset or the style is going to apply. And for emails, there's only two, which is big and small. But in landing pages and all the other assets you'll see, we have the full gamut. We have large, medium, small, extra small. This is typically a small phone. This is a full PC. So what we've done with this background image, it's only going to be appearing on these two sizes. And as well, we have an overlay on the columns back to the order of precedent for styles. Columns are on top of rows. Here we've added this transparent grid, but the same story here. Actually, it's only appearing on the large screen. So as we move through the progression, this disappears on the next size. And then what we've done is this row. So when that big hero banner, I should say the big image at the back disappears for example, tablet size and the email size of the, I should say, phone size of this object. We've now taken this row here to take up some of the heavy lifting. And if you look here, we have this picture again, but now this picture is only going to show up. Interesting, did I go in the wrong place? I wanted it on the content block, there it is. It's a case that if I go here, my backgrounds, I think this is where, yeah, right here. So it's a smaller size. So you see we've cut off the legs here. And this image is only gonna show up on these sizes. So basically the banner is now gonna be taken over by this image here. And as far as for managing responsive design, I think the spacer is a really important object. And why is we can actually have the spacer change where it's going to appear. So if we need to add a little bit more padding on the smaller screen, I would add a spacer that would only appear on specific sizes. So I know I'm going quite deep here, and but at the end of the day is hopefully I'm showing you how these builders differ and some of the capabilities that you can pull off, or features you can pull off with this. So if we look at this content block, which was the banner up at the top, and what we've done here is that we've added this background color on the smaller size, which I'll just show you again, which comes in at the smaller sizes. So because if you recall, this image disappears on the top sizes. So instead of just showing a white background on this image, we've now put this background image, the background color here. The other thing I wanted to show you here is, I'm going to move on to talking about the dynamic content builder. So quite one of the big benefits of ActiveDEMAND is this concept of contextual content. So we put all this effort into this this hero banner, and the hero banner we may want to use dynamic content to replace this hero banner, replace the background images or something like that based on context. So maybe the client is somebody who's outdoorsy as opposed to in the city. So what we would do, we've done all this work on this row, and what I would do is actually archive the row. And if I archive the row as my fancy hero banner, then I can go to dynamic content, make a new dynamic content block, and call this the fancy hero. And what I would do here is when I build the dynamic content block, I would just take my fancy hero row and I would drop it in here, remove this. And then what I would do is just start creating alternate versions of this and just go change the images as opposed to doing all this work again from scratch. And then I would do contextual content targeting rather for each of the different versions. So maybe I would create this and call it the outdoor person, right? And I'll use this exact block. It'll clone it. Now there's two. Target the second one, change the background image of the second one, and now I have a dynamic block. Then what I would do is come back to my landing page. I would have to refresh the browser, drag my block here, delete this row. But the end of the day is that the builder for the dynamic content is exactly the same as the builder for the landing pages, because this is going to be rendered in a browser. So this content's going to be rendered in a browser, so you get all of the capabilities that you have in the page builder in the dynamic content builder. The only difference, though, is that the dynamic content block, if you look at the properties, there is no concept of full width versus boxed. And if I go here on a row, right, I should say the assets here, there is the concept of full width or boxed. And what this does is it, of course, constrains the content, but this is always going to be full width in a dynamic content block, because the block itself is going to be put into the context of an asset, like, for example, a landing page, or if we're exposing it on a web page or using this div, etc., we're going to let the page or the asset that the block is actually rendering on determine the width of the asset. But the builder is the same. And with dynamic content, clearly the design and using of the libraries, you see anytime I save a row in a landing page, it is now going to be saved and accessible in my dynamic content builder as well. The difference with the dynamic content builder, of course, is now we have targeting, right? So we can decide which content is going to be targeting which viewer, and it's a case that it's top down. So when the page renders, it says, is it this person? Nope, then it's gonna be, this one's gonna be the rendering. So this is the big difference between the builders for the dynamic content block versus the page builder. Now, I wanted to show you another landing page where we're doing a little bit more crazy things, a little bit more advanced setting. If you see this page here, there is a few things that are different. As one is you see there's clearly this is at least a 2-column row. This is a single column row, but yet we have the same background image across both. Then you see this row has got some styling that is unique, and this here row down here definitely has some interesting styling going on as well. So we've got this styling here, as well as we have some hover capabilities, etc. So I'm going to show you how this was done in the editor. So, and it'll highlight some of the features that are also available in the advanced builders. So if we look at, for starters, I'll just scroll up here. How we did this, this is a row with 2 columns, a 1/3, 2/3, and then this is a single row with a single column. And you see I'm using spacers here. And so how we pulled this off is we actually used the background image of the page itself to render the cityscape. So the cityscape is behind everything, but we're overriding it as we progress through the builder, through the development of the asset. So it's a case that now if we look at this asset here, there's some custom styles. And what we've done, and if I go to the rows, a couple of things, like we basically have one row where we've used the CSS to put these angles here. And then to get everything contained in this row, what we've done is we've used a 5-column row. So I'm going to show you a couple of things with this row that are advanced capabilities of the builder. So if I look at this row itself, and I'll look at the styles for it, we've bundled inside our rows the ability to do advanced CSS as well as advanced JavaScript inside the rows. And why we've exposed this on the row is that if you do some fancy things in a row and save it into your library, the CSS and JavaScript for that row are archived into the library with the row itself. So with this one, I think it's just CSS, and I think there's a hover, right? And you see we've got these triangle things going on, as well as some hovers for these objects here. I don't think there's any JavaScript on this. I could be wrong. Nope, there's no JavaScript. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is how you can control the responsive, how the columns themselves play out in the different sizes of the screens. So this is a 5-column row, but it looks like 1 column here, 3 column here, 1 column here. But all we did is used a 5-column row, and we messed with the responsive columns here. So you have control over each column as far as how many of the columns it's going to take up during the different sizes. So if you see this first column, it takes up all 12 of the Bootstrap columns, and you have full control over this. And so on this large size, it's 12 out of 12, medium it's 12 out of 12, small it's 12 out of 12, and small it's 12 out. So it's basically it acts like it's a 1-column row. Then if I go to the second column, it's 4 to 12, 4 to 12, 4 to 12, 12 out of 12. So when we go to the small screen, this is going to take up an entire row, if you will. Same thing with this, as you see, they play out. So the thing I'm trying to introduce to you here is in the landing pages, you have control over, I call it how it folds, as opposed to, let's see here. Yeah, there will be a recording to this. I see somebody's asked a question. There will be a recording because I'm going through some advanced stuff here. So I definitely, you'll definitely be able to reference it. It'll be available after the presentation. But long story short is that for the landing pages, we're exposing on the columns how we actually do the column, and we see this in a lot of our templates as well. So once we've designed this column, the next thing we did is we just started cloning it, right? Duplicates instead of doing it all over. So then we get this page here that has our slider object. And this has got a background image, as you see here, that's right here, and it is set to, it's fixed, so it gives that scroll effect, right? And then we replicated that column to make another version of it. And because this is a column number 1, column number 2, column number 3, column number 4, column number 5, we can add more blocks to each column. So it's a case that that's how we ended up with this. So it looks like it's actually row, 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 but the reality is there's 1 row, 5 columns. These have 2 blocks on this column, 2 blocks on this column, 2 blocks on this column. And the other thing I wanted to show you here is with the landing pages is our menu object. So the menu object we use for building microsites. And really what it is, it's very analogous to how WordPress does it, where they abstract the menu from the pages. We do exactly the same thing. And when you look at our menu builder, it's very similar to the WordPress menu object. But I'm not going to go into the building menus. I'm just going to show you how we've used menus in the style. So if you look here, I wanted to get this this fixed menu at the top, even though it's a single page, right? So what I did is I used anchors and put the anchors to reference part of the page, and then using the menu object, you can see that it plays out and it plays out into being a nice little hamburger menu here. So the next builder I'm going to show you is the form builder, and again, it's the forms. They are being rendered in a full browser, so you have a lot of capabilities in the form builder that you would not have in the email builder, clearly. And there's some elements in the form builder that are clearly not available in the page builder. So to get to the forms, this is just a regular landing page. And basically, we just hover over the objects, and the same thing as I showed you in the emails, there is an advanced editor for all of the blocks. And this specific block, the form, if I hover over it, click the pencil, it will open the form editor into a new window. And again, the form editor is the same editor as the page builder, etc. It's the same builder, but now in a new context. So the things that are available in the form builder, first of all, we give you new elements, right? So there's lots of form elements that you'll see that unlike in just the page builder where we have page elements, clearly in the form editor, we're going to need some form elements. So there's our standard buttons that you typically have in a page, but there's contextual buttons that are typically only used in a form. For example, a submit button. And if we're using multi-page forms, basically what we do is we hit the structure, click here, add a page. So this is not available in the page builder or in the email builder. And what we're doing is we're just adding pages. The pages can be reorganized, right? And really the whole idea is to set up a multi-page form, right? So that's something that's unique to the form builder, is this page tab. And if you click this button, what it does is it breaks the pages into more of like a Word document, so you can move assets across the boundaries or the page barriers, if you will. So that's a unique capability of the page builder. Of course, there's the autoresponders, all this other stuff, and there's other videos and other support sessions that are systems that'll teach you all about forms. But from a builder perspective, the elements that we add to the page builder is one is I should say the form builder is the multiple pages. If I hover over and if I click, it will give you the context of that specific element. So for example, on this element, it's let's say I want to put in a drop down, right? So I'm just going to find a drop down here. There it is right there, pick list. So if I take this pick list, I click it, it's going to give me the elements of the pick list to configure. Now this is a hidden feature that a lot of people don't realize, is we do have this. And what this does is it allows you to access a dynamic field for that form element. And where would we use that? We'd use it in our autoresponders. So if we want to reference specific elements in the forms that were, like somebody filled out a form, you want to reference something that they did in that form, you may want to use the dynamic field in your email. So instead of sorting through long lists of dynamic fields, we have this cute little shortcut that nobody seems to know about. So the inline value, this has no formatting. This has formatting. That's the difference between these two. And also the form field, this is quite often referenced in the, if you're doing external work with our JavaScript API. The other element I wanted to show you was, and I'll just go back and put a drop-down list in here. and that's right here. Whoops, I didn't get it. Where is it here? So is all of our elements, if you look, display logic. So display logic on the pencils is you can reference, so this pick list, we're going to show this element if this pick list equals the first option. So we have the ability to hide and remove objects based on things that were done previously in the form. So it's a case that, again, that's something that's unique to the form builder. It's you would access the advanced edit, and if you see here, advanced edit, pulls out a slider, we get at the display logic. So we can hide and remove elements based on decisions that are made earlier in the form. But, and also we've abstracted in the styles, a lot of the common styles that are referenced across the form. So for example, if you look at this button, there is styles on the button, and you can override styles on a specific button, but I recommend do all of your element styles on the form itself. And this is exposed here as well. So you want all your buttons to look the same, you want your input styles to look the same, all of that stuff you want to do. I would say do all of that stuff on the asset style as opposed to on the individual, because it's if you have a very long form, going and messing with every single element is it'd be painful. So that's why we've exposed all of those into the page. And this here as well, we've exposed, like I said, on the asset styles right here. And in the last 10 minutes, it's gonna get a little bit crazy, because I would say the most complex builder we have, and I think it's something that's we're doing lots of work on. Is our pop-up builder. So the pop-up builder, why this one is so crazy is that it is a special case of dynamic content. It is a special case of the landing page builder, as it's a special case of the row builder. Plus, we have all this stuff that we need to do as far as popping up. When's this going to show? When's this not going to show, etc. So it is definitely our most complex builder. So unlike other pop-up systems that say pop up on this page with this page, of course we do that. But I think one of the powerful aspects of our pop-up system is that whole metaphor of dynamic content. So when I'm doing pop-ups, I tell everybody, divide the area of your screen into pop-ups. Push bars from the top, push bars from subscriber bars from the bottom, tooltips left, tooltips right. And the idea being is that create a whole list of pop-ups for that specific area of the screen. And the guarantee is that only one will render on a specific page. So of course you can do customization as to where this is going to pop up versus where that's going to pop up, but you still never, mistakes happen. I would say use this dynamic content system where you have a stack of pop-ups that are going to be applied in the same area of the screen, and then customize in the editor for that pop-up which pages you want it to render on. So we do have all the capabilities as far as determining where something's going to pop up. So for example, pop up on these pages, and I would say here something that most people don't know about is this supports regular expressions. So what you're saying, for example, if I want this to pop up on all pages of ActiveDEMAND that are, for example, resources, .star. What that means that it will show up on all pages that have this path, and .star, this will show up on all those pages. So regular expressions, it does support regular expressions is the point of the story there. And of course, you get all these features here as far as exit attempt, on page open, on hover, on click, on button click, on all of these things that most other pop-up systems have. But absolutely the most powerful thing is the advanced targeting for the dynamic content stack, because you can say only show this up for people who have signed up for trial, people who have already showed an interest in our camping tools, etc. This one here might be interested in parts, etc. So there's a lot. The flexibility on this one is definitely over the top. And it's the case that one of the things you may not realize is there is an editor for this. These are still rows. This is a specialty row here, which is the button, the close button. And they're, as far as the positioning of the object, this is all in the styles, right? So you see this pop up. We have the background image for the pop-up. There's the overlay properties. So that's how we have this is new as well. It's not new, but unique to the pop-up builder is the concept of the overlay, which is this, and animations. We have animations on all of the assets in the styles, but there's pop-up animations, close animations, etc. So yeah, I could spend a whole session just on this specific builder, but the end of the day is I think it's beyond the scope of this one. I think it's really just a quick overview of the differences between the different builders. So I'm running out of time here. Just to summarize, I think it's a case that the builders here, how we've been able to pull off being able to do so much with the platform without being overly complex, is we focused our development effort on a universal builder. So I'll open it up.